Hello, friends, and welcome back to TarpTalk.
We're back!
I am your host, Turkey Sauce, and I know that I haven't come with a video in a little while, so I kind of just want to jump right into it because there's a lot of football to talk about, a lot more than week 0, our last video. So I'm going to jump right into it, and I think the biggest news that we've had this week, as we all know, Clay Helton is out at USC. It seems to be a bit of an excuse. The Stanford game itself was not good. Stanford looked terrible in week 1 against the Kansas State team. That's just, they're Kansas State. They got drubbed. I don't think they scored an offensive touchdown. And then they went into the Coliseum and beat the shit out of number 15 USC. It seems like USC, their athletic director, Mike Bohn, was just kind of waiting for something like this to happen. This is year 7 of Clay Helton. We knew this was going to happen probably this year unless they ran the table. And it seems like as soon as they just got drubbed in one game, they were like, yeah, let's pull the plug on this. So we're going to hear a lot about all the coaching search. We're going to hear James Franklin and Luke Fickell. Mike Bohn, USC's athletic director, was the athletic director that hired Luke Fickell at Cincinnati. We're going to hear a bunch of names, but what it really comes down to is that SC works in a very particular way. Are they going to let Mike Bohn make this decision? Because if they do, they'll be fine. But if USC gets super kind of country club, sweater around your waist, fucking weird cult shit that's how it works there, they're going to hire like Jeff Fisher and it's not going to go well, and they're going to be in the long winter. But we're going to hear a lot about SC. College football is better when SC's good. I hope they kill this hire. I hope they let Mike Bohn make that hire. We had Iowa State. It went about how I thought it would. Iowa State offensively just doesn't have it. They don't really have the playmakers. They've just looked bad at the tackle positions. Brock Purdy just is what he is. He's never really improved. And that Iowa defense is scary. I've mentioned to some of y'all, I think this is an Iowa year. You know, we do this like it seems like election cycle almost, that like every 4 years they decide, hey, we're not 8-4 this year, we're like 10-2, maybe 11-1. I think that's this year. They do have questions on offense. The quarterback's fine. Their receivers are fine. Their O-line is an Iowa O-line. I don't think they're gonna go to the playoff necessarily, but the Big Ten looks pretty wide open because Oregon beat the shit out of Ohio State on both lines of scrimmage. It was not a pretty game. It honestly, like in terms of who controlled the game, it wasn't as close as the score would show. Oregon was running up and down on Ohio State, and their defensive line was dominating Ohio State's offensive line pretty much all game. Really kind of questionable scheme from Ohio State defensively. They had guys looking like they didn't know what they were doing. I think CJ Verdell's, I want to say it was his second touchdown. He only got to the corner on the left side because Ohio State had a linebacker running to the right side for some reason and ran into the linebacker that would have had the ankle on Verdell. It was really confusing. Their 5 techniques were spread super far out. It seemed like they'd never played an RPO before, which is just really, really bizarre because that's what Ohio State does. I'm worried about them. They have a loss now. They can't afford another one if they want to go to the playoff. And the Big Ten is solid. They don't have a game-changing, just like game, taking over quarterback. Stroud's gonna be good. He might win a Heisman at Ohio State, but it's not gonna be this year. He's still a freshman. He showed that in the first half. Didn't make a lot of great decisions in the first half. He played better in the second half, similar to how he did against Minnesota, but he showed that he's a freshman by throwing that pick at the end of the game. I know Ryan Day came out and said, we're gonna change things defensively, but we've seen this a few times. Ohio State had that one really good defense in 2019 when they had 2 first-round corners and Chase Young. But last year they were like in the 80s in defense, and this year it doesn't look any better at all. Their 5-star defensive linemen all kind of got pushed around all game. it's questionable to me if they can run the table and win the Big Ten. I don't know. I don't know who's gonna take them out because I don't really believe in Penn State. We'll get to that. Could be Iowa in the championship game, but we'll have to see. All right, moving along here. Got myself a glass of wine. Dogs look really good.
This is the Dogs!
I did not really expect to beat UAB 56-7 without our starting quarterback. But Stetson Bennett, what can you say? The mailman, baby. I had to rep this today. I can't really say anything that hasn't already been said by a lot of people, including Kirby Smart himself. But as much as it's fun to joke about Stetson Bennett, and he's just a little guy and he's trying really hard, we can't be mad at the guy. He should have never had to be in that situation last year. He's given it his all. He came back to Georgia to sit. He's handling this whole being the backup, and possibly not even the backup thing, really gracefully. He wants to be here. He's a dog. He won us a bunch of SEC games last year. No more jokes about Stetson Bennett. You know, on that end, I don't think he ever said that elite white people should be the only ones that own guns either. So that is another big check mark for Stetson Bennett. I don't want to talk about the Dogs too much, but yeah, didn't expect the 56-7. I do kind of expect it this week, though. I think we're going to beat the fucking shit out of South Carolina. Moving on, Arkansas. How about them pigs?
Yes, sir!
How about them swine? Absolutely dominated the game on both lines of scrimmage. They've got a quarterback. They've got multiple running backs. They've got the receivers. They've got the defense. Jalen Catalon is maybe the best DB in college football right now. They've still got Bumper Poole, who's a ball hawk for them. They just play good football, and they play like they expect to win every game, which can be rare, and I think is a testament to what Sam Pittman has done there. And I think that this whole Sam Pittman thing, to begin with, comes with the truth that, like, these programs you don't have to hire the 36-year-old group of 5 coach who's gone 24-2 in the past 2 years. Like, that consistently isn't working out everywhere. Like, it hasn't worked in Nebraska. It hasn't worked in Virginia Tech. If you have the opportunity to get someone that has ties to your program, that knows your league, that knows the area, and that just wants to fucking play some football and not get real cute about it and like be like, oh, I'm gonna come here and bring in, you know, a bunch of 4-3 wide receivers and we're gonna score 60 points a game. I think that we're gonna see the same thing happen unless he gets a quarterback in Tennessee. You don't have to fucking do that. You don't have to hire the up and coming coach that is super flashy and he's innovative on offense. You don't have to do that. Sometimes you gotta line him up and fucking play football. This game is about blocking and it's about tackling. At the end of the day, that's the game of football. And Arkansas does both really, really well. In 2 weeks, they've got A&M in Dallas, which, if we move on to Texas A&M, oh boy, offensively, yeesh. I have my opinions about Jimbo Fisher and his kind of thought of as this offensive guru. He really relies on really, really big and athletic offensive linemen and athletic quarterbacks that can do a lot in the pocket. I don't know that he has either of those things right now, and it's not looking good. They really should have lost to Colorado. They won 10-7. It's not going to get easier for them. And that game in 2 weeks, we'll get to it when we get to it, but that Arkansas A&M game in 2 weeks in Dallas just got a lot more interesting because Arkansas is going to come into that game like, we're going to fucking win this game. It's going to be really interesting. Before we move on to week 3, Kentucky and Missouri. A lot of you guys know Kentucky is my team this year. I've expected a lot from them when they brought in Liam Cohen from the Los Angeles Rams and they brought in Will Levis from Penn State. All they've been missing for these past few years, they've been really good the past few years. They just have literally been incapable of throwing the football. And they can finally do that now. With that said, they're still Kentucky. They still want to run it down your throat. That's what Stoops wants to do. They had a 200-yard rusher in Chris Rodriguez against Missouri. If they can shore that defense up a little bit, it hasn't looked quite as good as it has the past few years so far. Still week 2. I'm sure they'll get it right. That's a scary team. One of the scarier teams in the SEC, in my opinion. I'm kind of upset and shocked by the fact that they're not ranked 10. Moving on to week 3, I want to start this by just rattling off a few games that I'm interested in. I think you should be interested in because it kind of can shape the direction of teams, not just this year, but kind of programs in the future. For instance, this Michigan State-Miami game is really interesting to me. Miami is looking a lot less good than we thought, which might mean that Manny Diaz is a little less job security than he thought he might have had at the beginning of this year. Meanwhile, Mel Tucker continues to kind of surprise everyone at Michigan State. He brought in, I don't know, like 27 transfers this year. They're 2-0. They've looked really good so far. They beat Northwestern. I don't know how good Northwestern really is, but they did that. They've taken care of business. This is a really interesting game. It's Big Ten up north versus Miami. The kind of direction of these programs could really, go up or down in this game that's at noon. I'm excited for that. Cincinnati at Indiana. This line is at 3 in favor of Cincinnati for some reason. I don't really understand why. I don't really have much to say about this other than I think Cincinnati's gonna beat them by a couple touchdowns. I threw this on here too. Clemson and Georgia Tech. That line is at 28.5 in favor of Clemson, obviously. But if you remember, that game last year was 73-7. 73-7 in a conference game. Clemson absolutely beat the shit out of them. Obviously, Clemson has a little bit more questions this year, but Georgia Tech is even worse this year. Jeff Collins is done there. I think the whole team knows it. They're switching quarterbacks. They don't know what's going on. They're terrible on both lines of scrimmage. The line is at 28.5, and if you ask my opinion, I think that score is going to be a lot more than that. All right, getting into some of the real games here, some of the bigger games. Alabama at Florida. I'm excited for it. I don't really think it's going to be particularly close, especially because it seems that Anthony Richardson might be limited, might not play with his hamstring. He has been electric when he touches the football. I'm sure you guys have heard a little bit about, there's this kind of huge QB debate going on in Gainesville, where everyone kind of wants to see Richardson play. He is just absolutely dominated every time he's stepped on the field. He's gotten 22 snaps. He's had over 400 total yards and 4 touchdowns already in 22 touches, essentially, which is just outrageous. But he did pull a hamstring on a 80-yard touchdown run he had against USF last week, which might make the QB debate a little bit more clear. I don't hear a lot of people touching on in kind of the national media what Mullen has been saying about the whole thing. He has been saying he's sticking with Emory, and the reason is Richardson just simply doesn't understand everything about the offense yet, and he's missing checks at the line, and he's kind of bailing himself out by just being crazy athletic. I mean, this is the closest thing, and it's been 2 games against just 2 duds of an opponent. But he has looked like Cam Newton. He really has. I'm not saying he's gonna be or that he's gonna keep doing this against everybody, but in the 22 snaps that he has played, he has looked straight up like Cam Newton, the closest that we've gotten, and since Cam Newton. Bama might be without Will Anderson. It sounds like he will play, and he should be fine. I don't think it really matters. It will matter a lot if he is playing and Emory is their only quarterback. That's really not going to go well. But it's Alabama at Florida. It's a good game. They're undefeated. They both look fine so far. Alabama, as great as they looked in the first half against Miami, and I'm not saying that they're not great at all, but they didn't look really good. They got outscored in the second half against Miami, and then Saban was really, really pissed off at their effort against Mercer. They'll be fine. Don't get me wrong. They'll probably go 12-0. I'm just saying they haven't played to their standard that Saban wants them to play to yet. This is a really good opportunity for them to go on the road and beat the shit out of a pretty good team, and I think they're probably going to do it. Auburn at Penn State. I don't know, man. I don't know. Auburn has played the 6th best team in Ohio, and then Bishop Sycamore last week. It's basically just been extended fall camp for them. They've played 2 scrimmages, glorified scrimmages, really. I have no idea what to think of them. I will say that Bo Nix looks way more comfortable this year. I'm so glad that guy, just as a fan of college football, I've started to get kind of bothered by all the jokes about Bo Nix because he does have it in him. I think he was trapped in a system with Gus that just didn't suit him at all, and he could never quite figure out, which I don't really put on him. But he's been able to, he's got the experience now. He's going through his progressions. It's a better offense for him. I don't know if he's going to be super successful, but he does look more comfortable this year, and Auburn looks good. They've done what they needed to do. You can blame them in their athletic department for scheduling these two games, but they've done what they needed to do against two really bad teams. Penn State, they're going to wipe this game out. It's at night. It's a really tough place to play. That place gets really loud. Bo Nix has been, to the other point, really bad on the road in his career. So I don't really know what to expect about this game. I don't really know what to think about these two teams yet. We'll see. I'm hoping for a good game, and at the risk of saying that I'm rooting for Auburn, it would be kind of exciting if we get to go to Auburn on October 9th against an undefeated Auburn. That's all I'm saying. But, if this wasn't Penn State and all of the pedophile state, I would be rooting for that team. I don't like Penn State at all, though. So there you have it. Oklahoma State at Boise. I'm just bringing this up because we have a Power 5 team playing at Boise at night. We're going to be on the blue field. I think Boise's probably going to win, but it'll be close. Spencer Sanders for Oklahoma State, their quarterback, still looks like he has the last 2 years. He's gotten no better, it seems like. I don't think they're really going to win that game. I don't think they're going to have a very good season. But again, college football is better when we've got like an 11-1 Boise going to play like a big team in a bowl game. I think they have a shot at doing that. So yeah, why not? Well, let's watch Oklahoma State play on the blue field. That's awesome. Why not? That's what college football is about. Arizona State at BYU. This is it for me in Arizona State. They've gone through a bunch of stuff this offseason. They were kind of similar to Nebraska, just like getting around all the pandemic guidelines that the Pac-12 had in place, and we're just like practicing the whole time, and stuff's not good. They've got a bunch of assistants that are like under investigation. BYU has looked really good. They kind of beat the crap out of Utah last week. And this should be a good one. Arizona State's got to prove it this week to me. It's year 3 of Herm. They're one of the only 3 undefeated Pac-12 teams remaining. This is a big game, and I'm excited for it. And that also is at like 10:25. It's just so beautiful. And then the last one that I wanted to point out is Fresno at UCLA. UCLA is also one of the 3 remaining undefeated Pac-12 teams. Fresno State's really good offensively. UCLA's got to be ready. But this is such a litmus test, in my opinion. I know that they just beat the crap out of LSU, but this is a really big one. Fresno can really score the football. If UCLA handles Fresno like this, I'm going to be like, okay, like UCLA is for real. They're probably going to win the South because Fresno is a lot better than a lot of the teams in the Pac-12 right now. This would be an impressive win if they handled them comfortably. And then we've got, to finish it all off, Dogs South Carolina.
This is the Dogs!
It's not going to be close. South Carolina's, it sounds like Luke Doty's going to play, which is good. Maybe by the time this video is coming out, we'll know one way or the other. But I'm excited to, I don't want to play the grad transfer. I want them to test us as much as they can. I want our secondary to get tested. They haven't been really yet. We're going to win this game by close to 50 points. That's been TarpTalk. I'm glad to be back. Thank you guys for watching. We'll hopefully be back next week for week 4. There's a lot of good games next week. So I'll try to make it happen. But remember to call your dad and tell him that you love him. Thanks.